Welcome everyone to tonight's regular meeting of Walpole's Board of Selectmen. It's after the hour of 7 o'clock, our posted time, so I call the meeting to order. And as we always do, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One of us is going to get a head injury.
That's true. So a couple of quick housekeeping items before we launch into the agenda tonight. So we had an election 10 days ago and wanted to, first of all, congratulate and welcome back Nancy McKenzie to the board.
Thank you.
I think this is 4 terms.
Yes.
Awesome, congratulations. And to my left, Ben Barrett, first time to the board, so welcome, Ben, and congratulations to you as well.
Thank you.
And it was really a very good election and a very clean election, and I want to make sure that we thank Liz Gaffey and her team for everything that they did to run the election, and also all the folks that helped out down at the various precincts, from the wardens to all the volunteers at the polls and so forth. It really went very well. So great job by everybody. One of the things that we do following every election is we have a reorganization meeting of the Board of Selectmen, which we had last Monday night. And the purpose of that meeting is to elect a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk for the upcoming year. So the result of that is that I'll be the chair for the upcoming year, Nancy is going to be the vice chair, and Ben will be the clerk. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is you've probably noticed that we're here in the main meeting room again after having had the show on the road for, what, 5 months, Jim?
Yeah,
something like that.
Since January 24th.
Yeah, exactly. And so great to be back here, but more importantly, what a great job the building maintenance team did here in the room. And we're going to talk more about that at 7:30 when Don Anderson is here, but I just wanted to mention that we're back and this is where we'll be going forward. So with all that said, our first appointment tonight is with the police chief, Chief Carmichael. So Chief, the floor is yours.
Good evening, thank you. Congratulations to the new board. Jump right into it. I did send the board a few documents. Hopefully that you got a chance to look at those prior. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Personnel, start off with that. The department's currently at 42 officers. Officer Bird, Officer Gennard, and Officer Rohana are all involved in the field training officer program right now. They just finished their first phase and moving on to the second phase. We are going to have some turnover as far as dispatchers, and Carly Moriarty, most notably, is going to be taking a position over at the rec. Jake Ryan has accepted a police officer position at Norwood PD, and Matt Tedesco is also one of our dispatchers that is going to be moving on to a different department. We are in the process of hiring new dispatchers. Jim's met with a couple of them. Dawn Savory, who used to work at Foxborough PD and Plymouth PD, came fully trained, and we have her in training now at our dispatch center. Keith Cogan started out in Mansfield, and he's joined us. He's also trained, and we're looking to hire a third one probably in early July. We just had our promotional exam for sergeants and lieutenant. Deputy Chief McKenzie did a great job of securing a guy named Attorney Justin Hanrahan, who offered the exam from Hanrahan Consulting. We had 8 sergeants and 8 officers go for the sergeant position and 5 for lieutenant. And we have the written and the assessment center coming up as well. So far they've done the written portion of it. Just some notable community policing initiatives. I did attach just some photos of this past quarter. The Walpole Youth Police Academy, 7th and 8th grade, is coming up. The first class is going to be starting June 24th, and we're going to be starting that out at the Walpole Police Department. The second class is going to be in July. We have 32 kids signed up for each class, and that's our cutoff, so they signed up pretty quickly. Some of the other community policing initiatives, a ride to school is always a big hit. Positive tickets, positive t-shirts as well. And now that we get the better weather coming in, we have basketball cop and hockey cop at the police station where we can set up the various courts for kids over there. if you look at your, the quarterly report update, I will point out that probably the most significant issues that we are dealing with right now, and you've heard me say this before, are mental health calls. And when I say mental health, I mean suicide, suicidal ideation, involuntary commitment, Section 12, Section 35, drug commitments. They've increased another 100% so far this year. 100% increase in 2017, 100% increase in 2018, and we're looking at increasing that another 100% this year. It is definitely our most significant call. I'm sure the Chief Bailey will attest to that. It's multiple times during each shift that we're dealing with situations. And I think Mark asked me one time, what we're trying to attribute this to, and I rack my brain on that a lot. But I think one of the things is that I've noticed is that as a community we're reducing stigma. We're reducing stigma for substance use disorder, and we're reducing stigma for mental health issues. I think that people are more inclined to ask for help, and they're not afraid to ask for help. In fact, we've had some situations where people will actually wave down a police car and ask that officer to get them to the hospital because they're having a mental health crisis. And years ago, coming up, we didn't see that. So that's one of the things that we're noticing. Our officers are very well trained. They've attended ICAT training, integrating communications, assessment, and tactics. That's how to de-escalate situations. That's how to recognize mental health situations. And they are absolutely doing an amazing job of dealing with this. Critical decision making, and helping that person to get to resources and de-escalate in that situation. A big issue this year, as you know, has been getting our school system up to par with Alice. As you know, we transferred from that locate, lock, leave, live kind of protocol to Alice, alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. And we have trained all of the school teachers, all of the staff, faculty. We've trained all of the students from 5th grade all the way up to 12th grade. And our next concentration is going to be on kindergarten through 4th grade for the upcoming year. And what's that? Yep. And so as we have a break in this summer, Jim and I have been in communication, and we think that it would be a good idea, because Alice, part of the reason why we went to Alice is because we want to get everybody in the community familiar with the same terminology, the same protocol. So regardless of what building we're in, or if it's town hall or the library or a school, we're going to respond to it the same way, and that's what Alice will help us do. So we have 6 officers that are trained in Alice, and we made the recommendation that we start to train employees of town hall, the library, council on aging, as well as the various boards in town, so that we know what to do. Not just, and I'm not just talking about critical incident, active shooter type situations, but any type of critical incident, a gas break, a medical emergency, anytime we have to evac or reverse evac. And I think that it will really be beneficial for the town, also being on the same page as our students. The kids are coming home and they've been trained on it, and we think that that will be a good thing for the community. As of note, the past month and a half, we've had 4 school threats in our schools, one being at the Aggie, the Bico school up on Route 1, and a couple at Tech Phoenix. Some of them resulting in arrests of people that have actually threatened harm to our schools. Eso Training, active shooter hostile event response. This is kind of in tow with the Alice program, and this is the police and the fire department training together and collaboratively to come up with a active response to any type of critical incident, unified command, that kind of thing. And that's going very well. So if I could just touch on a few critical incidents that we've had this quarter. We investigated a shooting. Ironically, it happened to be on the same street as the police station. But I want to commend Detective Kyle Griffin, because he did an absolute amazing investigation, writing multiple search warrants, identifying the suspect, getting a warrant for the suspect, having detectives go out and arrest the individual, and getting hopefully some justice for the victim. He just did a great job with it, and that suspect has been charged with attempted murder. We had a swatting call down at the Cricket Lane apartments. This is obviously a fake call, but the call came in as a shooting with gunshots fired, and officers did a great job deploying down there, setting up a perimeter, kind of searching that whole area. We had to make some forced entry into some parts of the building because of the information that we had, and they were quickly able to determine that it was a hoax call. Very tough to investigate these because it's difficult to find the origin of the call. We had a stabbing incident back in April. This was kind of a high-profile incident because it really, and my apologies go out to the neighbors because it was a disruption for them for a few days, where an individual had fled on foot into the neighborhood. We were able to track that individual using K9. Multiple resources came in from Metrolec, State Police, K9, Sheriff's Department, and over the fire department got right out there, transported the victim, but the next 48, 72 hours was a significant perimeter search, K9 tracking. We brought in cadaver dogs at one point, and really what we were trying to do, what we were worried about was that we knew two things: the individual got away and was in another location, or something happened to the individual in that perimeter zone. And so we worked both angles. Ultimately, the individual was, because of notices that we put out, was identified up in Vermont, arrested through a warrant that we received to extradite, and brought him back. But the other side of it, the search side of it, was focused on that area because we had to give it due diligence for that family, that if something did happen to that individual out there, that we were going to find him, and we weren't going to leave until we did. So that's kind of how that went. And in the end, the person was arrested. We helped with East Providence PD on a bank robbery suspect. Ironically, this individual also lived on South Street in Walpole. There was a lot of moving parts to this one: State Police, East Providence PD, Walpole PD, some other agencies. There was active surveillance that was taking place over a period of time. Deputy Chief McKenzie did a great job of coordinating efforts of different resources that we had. Our officers ended up doing the search warrants because the probable cause was from Rhode Island. So we used their probable cause to do the search warrants, get into the house, and recovered items of evidentiary value, which worked out very well. We had a grow fire, marijuana grow. Walpole Fire Department advised us at a house fire that happened about 5 o'clock in the morning. It turned out that there was 196 marijuana plants that were growing in the home. These are extremely dangerous for obvious reasons. Any fire obviously is extremely dangerous, but with the bootleg wiring components and the lighting structures and overloaded circuit cords and that kind of stuff makes it very dangerous for first responders, as well as the CO2 that they use to grow it, and airborne mold, spores, that kind of thing. So guys had to be suited up and everything when they were dealing with this. Wrote search warrants for that house to recover the plants and everything. And both fire and police did a great job on that. There was one drug arrest, significant one this past quarter. Our detectives in NORPAC, the task force, they were investigating a distribution of crack cocaine and heroin ring that was out of Central Falls, Rhode Island. We were able to infiltrate that person using undercover officers, multiple undercover officers, and ultimately made an arrest of that individual up at the Walmart parking lot. And one of the big issues we've been dealing with, vaping, obviously. This quarter has been much different than other quarters, I think. A lot of dab oil, or if you want to call it butane honey oil, has kind of made its way into our schools, into the teens in Walpole, and it was everywhere. And we made a couple of arrests of younger people that were distributing this drug in Walpole. But we've, you know, in the past quarter, we've seized over 40 different types of BHO oil or THC oil. And as you know, you have the overdose statistics. This year so far is on line to be probably one of our worst years since 2011 as far as overdoses. We've already lost 5 people as of this past weekend, and we've had 18 total overdoses since January. You know, our worst year going back, we had 9 fatalities and 35 total. That was back in 2017. So hopefully, you know, we're doing so much. We have the Norfolk County Outreach Program. We have a recovery coach that goes out with us to every overdose victim and family, offering resources. We have some very good success stories, but this is also along the lines with the mental health issue, one of the most significant public safety issues we're dealing with. And just a couple of other small things, awards. Officer Slavin received a service award from the Massachusetts Women in Law Enforcement. We're very proud of her efforts. We have another award ceremony coming up this week for several of our officers and dispatchers, which I'll hold off on until the next situation comes up. But there's one other thing, you know, there's a couple of compassionate, and you know, I like to bring these up because, you know, there is still some anti-sentiment against the police across the country, and a couple of things that are noted in there. One was an unattended death investigation that we responded to, where a young 7-year-old boy found his mom deceased, and this happened over a weekend, and obviously there's a lot of the family was distraught. But what they did is the sergeant on duty, Sergeant Becker, had Officer Hart come out and bring Rebel, and the little boy was familiar with Rebel from school, so he brought them to the scene, and it really helped just diffuse that situation, kind of take the little boy's mind off of what was happening. Took him to Dunkin' Donuts, let him play with Rebel and that kind of thing. And we have many, many documented situations where Rebel has absolutely like turned the direction of a situation. And I can't say enough about that team. I'm very proud of it and what those guys are doing, so as well as Rebel. And then Officer Koenig, I just made a note because there was a motorist that was stuck at the gas station, the Gulf gas station up on Route 1. Got to the gas station, lost his ATM card, was not from the Walpole area, and he was basically stranded there. And Officer Koenig ended up responding to that call, and as a result, he gave the guy money, and he helped him, basically, you know, no strings attached. Got him some gas and got the guy on his way. And I like to mention that because, you know, that obviously the officers are not obligated to do anything like that, but time and time again they do. And I've mentioned this in the past, but they do these types of things all the time. In fact, you'll see a picture in there of Officer Murphy, who finished the detail and saw a man cleaning up a cemetery plot, and he walked over and spent some time over there helping the man clean up the plot and everything. And I think it's important to just mention that because you know, they have big hearts, and I like what they do. So, and so with that, any questions?
Thanks, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? David, maybe we could start down your end.
So, I think you indicated that there are 42 officers now, and how many of those officers are in supervisory positions?
We have, currently we have 7 sergeants, and there's 4 in the command staff.
And is there always someone, either a sergeant or a command staff, on every shift?
Well, that's our goal, but currently no, because we do still have what's called officer in charge, because we only have 7 sergeants. And you know, we're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's only so much that amount of sergeants can do. And as a result, you know, if they're coming off of a double and we can't fill an oncoming shift, then we have officers in charge. And I know Deputy Chief McKenzie will back me on this. We don't prefer that because as I just finished this report, you can see that there are some very significant critical incidents and things that are taking place, and you want to make sure that we have supervision and we're dealing with these situations appropriately. Out of any department in the entire town, if we want to look at who's got the most liability, it's probably us. Because any mistake we make, or, this way or that way, can bring on, a lawsuit or anything like that. So I think it's very important that we have trained supervisors that are on all the time.
So, all right. That's it for now. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Nancy?
I just wanted to mention, you mentioned that Carly would be leaving. I know that Carly works really well doing the holiday donations and the backpacks and things with the junior women's, and she's definitely going to be missed. Another person that's not necessarily part of a dispatcher role, but has taken it on herself and has spent a lot of time volunteering and helping out. So.
Thanks. Ben?
I don't have any questions, but thank you for the update, Chief.
Thanks, Ben. Mark?
Yeah, I would just say I'm really glad to see the Alice training continuing to roll through, and I love the idea of it coming here to Town Hall and, throughout all the departments and buildings. I think that's a great thing. And then the second thing I noticed as I skimmed through your report is just the whole community policing attitude. And I think, your comment about mental health, people are now willing to reach out when they need it, where before they felt shunned, as well as people with drug and alcohol addictions, being willing to come forward, or an event makes them identified, and then you can sort of help them get to where they need to go. I think that's very important. It's a big problem in the country right now and in the state. And, I love to see that you're active trying to help people get the kind of help that they need, and working with the families to get their loved ones, the help and support they need. So I think that's a great indicator of the whole community policing idea is working, and you're taking the broader view, which is great. Thanks for all that.
Thank you. Just real quick on the Alice issue as well. So at the end of the summer, after we train everybody at Town Hall, what we're thinking of doing is having a presentation night for parents, so that parents all, we send letters home with them, but that only gives them so much information. So we plan on having like a parent night where they can come and we'll explain all of the Alice protocol. And one of the critical incidents I mentioned tonight required us to go to the high school because we had to put the high school on what we call a lockout, which is part of Alice, and basically that just means that there was a concert taking place. The concert can continue to go on as scheduled, but people are locked out until we had a perimeter set up around the school. Nothing was being disrupted in the school, but we didn't want people coming in and out until we located the person. And it went very well, and that worked just with communication with everybody up there. The custodians and everybody that worked at the high school are all trained in Alice, so they were very quick to mobilize within the school and go where they needed to be. So it worked out very well, and I think as we continue to roll this out, people become aware of it, it's just going to be that much. It's just going to be that much better as we go forward.
Great. Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Mark. So 1 year in the new station.
Yes,
That time went by fast, huh?
it did, yeah.
It's amazing. It's been a year. I see the picture in there. It's awesome. A couple of questions for you. The vape pens issue that you raised, the 12 vape pens that were seized, do you see any correlation between the number of vape pens that you seized and the fact that we've got vape shops in town at this point?
It's really too early to tell that, and part of why it's too early to tell is because at this time last year, we didn't see the products that we're seeing now. So the trend is completely changing, and,
Yep.
and drug trends do change depending on region and a lot of other factors, but it seems like just after New Year's this year, we started to get just like an influx of it. So that's the trend that we're seeing. We're definitely seeing kids not really using vaporized as far as nicotine. They're not using other drugs with the THC oils that are very prevalent, becoming more prevalent.
Okay, thanks. You mentioned you have a number of officers receiving commendations. If you think it's appropriate, please feel free to bring them in here so we can thank them ourselves. And I couldn't help but wonder, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but it'd be kind of nice to see Rebel in here sometime. So if you want to bring Rebel in, that'd be kind of cool too. So
We'll even bring Officer Hart, too.
there you go. Chief, thank you. Great update. Appreciate it. And our next update is from the Fire Chief, Chief Bailey. So Chief, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Call volume, 1,525 emergency calls, 1,238 inspections. That's since January 1. Total calls for service, 2,763. As Chief mentioned, we had one house fire in this quarter that was on Burrell Street here in town. That was a fire that was from our team. We also went to the towns of Norwood, Franklin, Medfield, Norfolk, and Westwood twice for working fires, and most recently over in Millis last week for the fire that they had on 109. The ambulance receipts currently $1,701,912. For fiscal year 19, we have brought in $1,119,435. The past month of May was biggest month we've ever had for collections, so the collections are going well. Both ambulances are now up at the ALS level, which is Advanced Life Support, and that is going extremely well. We're running one ambulance at the double medic level, and the other one is running at what we call a PB level. So if we have two medics, we'll put both medics in that truck, but if we have one basic and one ALS, one medic, then they can run that way as well. So, and it is working very well. We started a new ambulance reporting system on January 31st, and that is going very well. That's helped to gather more information that we needed for the state, and it in turn has helped with our billing, and we're able to bill out better, more quality than we had before. I am currently working along with Jim with the Norfolk County Chiefs on a regional medical director. Currently, our medical director is out of Norwood Hospital. We're looking to branch out of that and have the regional medical director, which will be the same doctor, but he'll be working out of the Mansfield Fire Department and servicing all the communities that he was servicing before. There's 11 of us in total. What this will allow us to do, if we go this route, is the cost stays the same, but it'll allow us to get the doctor into our station more and have more hands-on with us and our personnel. So it'll be a better fit all the way around. The new station, we just had our warranty walkthrough. It's been a year since we've been in there, and the items that were identified are being taken care of as we speak. My current budget to finish out this year is doing extremely well on both the salary and expense line, and I don't foresee any problems. Detail billing, fire details are in good standing. We billed out $214,000 in fire details for this fiscal year. Our AFG grant, we have one that is still currently open. That's our Wellness and Fitness Grant. We are finishing that up with the last phase of that, which is the actual physicals from that grant. The company that we were using, we had to ask for an extension because they weren't available in our time frame. So that'll be done before the end of summer, hopefully. Our SAFE grant is the same as it's always been. That's for the school children, and we do that primarily in the months of September and October. So that'll be coming up as summer ends. Senior Safe, we had a senior breakfast at the COA on March 15th. Fire prevention continues to be very busy. The deputy handles all the commercial fire prevention. The captains handle the day-to-day with the residential component. As these buildings get further and further along, and you can see them in town just driving around, they require more and more inspections. So that'll be ongoing until those projects are finished. All of our personnel have been through the two big buildings over here at 1034 East and 95 West is familiarization tours, and those will continue now as we progress through the end of those occupancies, probably on a 2-month level so that they can see different progress as it goes along. The one at 95 West Street, we're working with the current developer, and phasing some of that occupancy in, which they're hoping for by the end of the summer. So I'll keep you up to date on that as we move forward. The deputy met with school leadership to go over the fire drill regulations. We're doing some refining of that to make it, the reporting end of it a little bit better. ISO review, as I mentioned, the last quarter, that has taken place. That was with the fire and water departments. We met, we gave them the information that we needed, the updates that they needed, but we're still waiting on the report, so I don't have any more on that at this point. On the apparatus, the tower ladder, which has been delayed on numerous occasions, was delayed again. They're now telling us that it will be done on June 23rd. I have seen pictures of it. It is out of the assembly line. It's out in the actual test field right now down in Florida, running through its tests, so hopefully the 23rd will be a firm date for it to get shipped up here, and hopefully we'll have it within the next month and a half or so. The new engine was scheduled to be done on August 5th. I'm cautiously optimistic that that's going to happen. The movement seems to have slowed down everything down there, so I'll keep you up to date on that as we move forward. Our mini brush truck pumper that was a capital item a year ago, I believe, that was ordered. That'll be in November. On the training end of thing, our ESO training, as I mentioned earlier, for the new program, that was an ongoing thing. That has ended, and everyone seems to be doing very well with that. New Ems Protocols had to be done by the middle of June. Those have been done with all of our personnel. They're all up to speed with the new protocols. Home Instead came in and did training for us on the care of Alzheimer's patients. Our personnel go to EMS rounds on a monthly basis with the hospital, and we did Asher training with the PD. They came in and did all of our groups, and that was very well received. And thank you to Sergeant Becker and Officer Crown for coming in and doing that. Personnel, we're interviewing candidates for 2 current open positions. We will be coming before the board, hopefully at your July meeting, with those candidates. We had our promotional exam last week on June 5th. I had 4 lieutenants take the captain's tests, so that's all that were eligible to take that, and I had 14 out of 16 that were eligible to take the lieutenant's exam. So that'll be a multi-phased, there's an exam portion, then there's an assessment portion. We're scheduling the assessment portion now, so that'll be coming forward. Also on the personnel thing, we have a fire prevention inspector that'll be starting on October 1st. That'll be a day position, and that was approved through our budget process. Injuries, none this quarter. And as far as the community goes, we had an engine over at the Village Fair. Walpole Day, we were in the parade. Friends of St. Patrick, the parade. We participated in the Iron Chef Junior competition at the Walpole High School, and Eric McGraw and the fire department were the winners in that event, so congratulations to him. And lastly, night before the 4th, as usual, coming up very quickly, and hope to see everyone there.
Thanks, Chief. Great update. Let's start down the other end. Mark, any questions?
Just a comment, and we've talked about this in the past, just, you know, the Globe had an article about the cancer risk for firefighters. I know nationally it's become a thing, that people are now talking about it. And I mentioned to you that you should really think about what kind of capital budget requests for next year, whether it, you know, it seems like the trend is going with a second set of gear, so that as soon as you're back in, one set of gear can go right in the cleaner, the washer, whatever you happen to call that machine. And they have something that they can go right back out. So just, you know, give that some thought. I think it is a real and serious risk. And, you know, maybe there's something else other than just the second set of gear that, you know, you want to sort of educate us on. But that would be great if you could start to give us a little more on that over time. We've got a little time now before budget, so.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Ben?
No comments, Chief. Thanks for the update.
Nancy?
A couple of things. The second truck, when it's running ACLS, is it running on a waiver if it has BLS
No.
basic in it?
They changed the regulations a few years ago, so we don't need the waiver anymore. What I have to be able to provide is another medic if the call's a priority 1, which is a serious call, where they require 2 medics in the truck. We take that other person off of the engine if need be.
If need, okay. Oh, that's
I have
awesome.
other personnel. So my personnel rotate through. So there's always 2 on the first ALS truck.
Yeah.
And then on the second ALS truck, so that we can rotate our personnel through the engine and keep everybody fresh. It can be a mixed truck.
That's awesome. And then, are you talking Mikey Volcanis?
Yes.
Is he gonna go to Mansfield and leave?
He'll be doing both.
Oh, doing both. Gotcha. And then, new hires, now that we're in the station, I know before we weren't very attractive to females. Are we going to be looking to diversify the department?
So
Maybe add some
we're
females?
We're always looking to diversify the department. We had 48 applicants that applied, some of which were, and we're down to our finalists now, and it is a mixed group. And the deputy and I have been conducting interviews over the past week, and
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be great for us to, police department's done a great job coming along, that I think it would be great for the fire department to do too.
so if they apply, we interview them, and that's been, we have a lot more applicants this time. So the change in the way that we're advertising for the positions is actually why we had 48.
Yeah.
We take EMTs as well as paramedics now.
Yep.
But the EMTs have to become a paramedic by contract within 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a little bit of a gamble, but that's how we get more candidates to pick from. So
Yeah.
it has opened up some doors.
Well, to take the lead from a past selectman, I know that Judy Conroy sat here and gave the directive to, get some women on the police department, that I think that if I can be that same person to say, let's get that going with the fire department. I totally understood before, because I don't think one would want to be staying in that, But anyway, I think we've got some great conditions now, and it would be super.
Great. Thank
Okay, David?
I want to congratulate you on the second ALS, and I want to also congratulate this board and prior boards and prior town meetings for supporting that, especially since we look at towns to our west, like Medfield, that we're actually considering not going that way. It's certainly a commitment we've made, and I think it's for the benefit of our town, and I thank you for pushing that.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. So you're also 1 year in the new house?
Yes.
And fantastic. It's amazing, again, that time has gone by. Really pleased with what's happened down there, though. And great update, Chief, so thanks for coming in to see us.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay, our next appointment is with Don Anderson, Building Maintenance, and this is a kind of a fun acknowledgement or recognition thing that we want to do because of the great work that, Don, you and your team did here in this room. And, just did a great job, but also saved the town money and all that, and I think showed some real creativity. So we thought it would be smart to have you come in, talk a little bit about what the problem was, how you attacked it, and obviously you got a tremendous outcome here. So thanks for being here, Don.
Well, thanks for the invite. I would like to clarify that Rebel had nothing to do with this. I want to thank you for appreciating the work of the department. I feel as though we have a very good group of guys working for us. They take pride in all of their work. It's not just this project that they work on, but it's behind the scenes work that we do on a daily basis. So, I'm very pleased with the work that we do. I wish they liked me. So I'd like to thank Jim, because we did. We had a situation here where we had a sprinkler pipe that froze and broke and flooded the whole area. And Jim actually saw this as a great opportunity to take advantage of that downtime and make some improvements rather than just Band-Aid it. So I think that's what we tried to do here. We tried to clean it up, make it a lot nicer. It was getting old, so we tried to brighten it up for everybody. And then once we got started, Jim cut my budget, so I appreciate that. So.
You want another cut?
No. So other than that, I just, I think we tried to do a good job, and I hope we made it nice for everybody.
Well, you certainly did a nice job, and not just did a nice job, but man, it's just so much bigger and more open and more welcoming. It's brighter, it's clean, it just feels, so much better to be here. And so it's an improvement, is what it is.
That's what we tried to accomplish.
And if you look at the quality of the workmanship around the room, it's quite high. I mean, impressive what they did with the walls, and I know they had to take out the closets and, of course, the stage and all that. And can you talk a little bit about how you creatively came up with this piece of furniture?
That's actually, Jim and Patrick worked on that project. They actually contacted Mass Corps, I believe is what they're called, and they worked with them, and they came in. We helped lay it out and design the size of it to fit and so forth, but it was with Patrick's help that, we contacted them and got this whole project going, and saved a considerable amount of money for such a beautiful piece of furniture. So I wish I could have said I made it, but
Jim?
Yeah, so just a couple of things. Don's being a little bashful here. What really the building maintenance department did is sections of the stage was all rotted, especially over here. I almost fell through a couple times. So we decided to take out the stage, the cabinets altogether, make it handicap accessible to get up on the stage. We lowered the stage here and poured the concrete so the rot would never be an issue here. You'd also note that this seems much more wide open. That's because we took out the HVAC system that was kind of blocking the TV cameras and everything and raised that up much more. That was about a 12 or 15-year-old system. So Don he's really inventive when it comes to things. And some of the things that sticks out to me that makes this room pop a little bit is these little black areas. And a couple of the guys who work in building maintenance, particularly Mr. Sullivan, he did a great job really coming up with some innovative ideas as to how we can make it. And we tried to differentiate on the flooring area here's a stage, the darker gray, the lighter gray is down below. And they did a great job dressing it up. They're not done yet. We're going to build a wall that gives the bathrooms a little bit more privacy and put the TV cameras back up, TV monitors back up so the board can see yourselves. But they did a great job in here. And, it was a hassle holding some meetings at the senior center, and the police department was very accommodating in the new station, but it's good to be back here. And, on January 24th when we came in, I wouldn't have thought we'd be back here, almost, 6 months later or so, but it was well worth it, and the insurance company was good to work with. The finance department, Marilyn and Jody, their team was good in kind of being creative, how to free up some funds while we settled the insurance claims and everything, and Patrick did a great job managing it. So it was really a group effort across the board.
Really nice. Any comments or questions from the board?
Sure, a couple.
David? Yeah.
So, great job here. You did a great job at the Board of Health room as well. And these have been visible changes, but there have been so many more things that you've done over the years that with the boiler systems and the roofs and the not so exciting things, and I appreciate your work. And I feel bad that you're here because the thanks you would have preferred is to be home right now.
I didn't want to come.
So,
I was nervous, and I actually wrote some notes. Jim made me come.
That's funny. Other comments?
Yes,
Nancy?
it's beautiful, thank you. And, we ask you to step up and do some different project manager things and take over and you always do a fabulous job. I also appreciate that you let me help pick colors, so thank you.
Did I mention you? I'm sorry.
No,
A lot more, but Jim took over.
But everything, it's just, you do just a beautiful job,
Thank
and
you.
it's really appreciated.
Thank you.
Ben?
I know, I just wanted to say thank you. It looks excellent, so I appreciate the work.
And Mark?
I just say thanks, Don, and, say thank you for us to everybody who was involved over here. And I know you're working on the health office, and maybe we can continue the trend and
Yeah.
continue to update other offices.
Jim's got a
so.
schedule going.
The next one is the old Council on Aging section. They finished up the Board of Health. We're going to be moving building inspections down to that area and have another meeting space because there's always meeting. That's a high demand in this building. So that's the next office area that's going to be taken care of, and we'll transition them down to there and probably move another department down to the old building inspections office. David mentioned something to me a couple of months ago. Let's keep this rolling through town hall. Let's not let this place go. So one of the requests I asked Don for capital this coming fall is let's put $50,000 aside to do a few more offices next year. Just keep it going, keep it up to speed, and
That's a great idea.
Very good idea.
Does this mean you're not letting me go? I'm just asking.
Don, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I
Please
appreciate
express
it.
that to the team, and a really wonderful job. Thanks for being
Glad
here
you like it.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And we will be having, we will have a plaque that recognizes all the staff and building maintenance. All of Dawn's crew helped with this. It saved the town a lot of money, so we'll put that up somewhere in the room. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jim. Okay, 7:35, our next appointment is with Rachel Johnson Jackson, an appointment to the Board of Health as an associate member. So, Rachel, if you'd come up to the podium so we can chat with you a little bit, that'd be awesome. So first of all, thank you for volunteering to be on the Board of Health as an associate member. We really appreciate that. Certainly appreciate everybody who volunteers their time here in town, so thanks for that. We always like to just spend just a minute or two talking to the folks that come in to volunteer, just to give you a chance to talk a little bit about yourself and your background. So if you would just spend a minute or two on that, that'd be awesome.
Sure. I'm Rachel Jackson. Actually, my maiden name is Johnson, so was that on there?
It is, yeah.
Oh, okay, yes.
I go by the agenda.
There you go. I've lived in Walpole for over 42 years. I currently live in East Walpole with my husband and my 16-year-old daughter. I'm the nurse at the Walpole High School. I also serve on the Walpole Youth Soccer Board. I'm on the MRC, co-chair of the steering committee. I think maybe my biggest claim to fame is I co-parent Rebel, so. People know me, people don't ever look for me, they just look for the dog. They're not looking for Tommy, so. And I just think that joining the Board of Health will be a good kind of continuum from the high school and some of the younger population and some of the trends, if you will, that have been happening, and kind of trying to help with some of the things that go on in the school systems and carry them over into the Board of Health.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Questions for Rachel?
I think it'll be great that you're really at ground zero with knowing what's going on, the trends in the schools, that you can certainly bring that to the board, and I really appreciate the adding it to your schedule to do this for the town. Thank you.
Nancy?
Yes, thank you, Rachel. I just wanted to comment that, looking at the Board of Health, they do such a great job and do so many tremendous things that I think to have a member that is a nurse and from the school system is so needed to be added to the Board of Health for the town's sake and for the Board of Health's sake. So thank you so much for volunteering.
Thanks. Ben?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for volunteering. And I know my wife, Katie, was on the Board of Health as an associate member for a long time, and she found it very rewarding and was able to put some of her professional experience into it. So I hope you find it similarly rewarding, and so thank you for putting in the time.
And I just want to say what I often say to volunteers is, one of the things that makes the town of Walpole great is there's so many people willing to volunteer. And I know you're volunteering for this particular thing, and I know you're involved in a lot of other volunteer efforts. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all that you do.
And likewise, thank you, and you have a very impressive resume, so thanks for volunteering. So, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Rachel Jackson to the Board of Health as an associate member.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 5-0-0. Thanks very much.
And
So I guess the next steps will be, Cindy, maybe you could help me out with this. Yeah.
I'll send her a letter.
Yep.
And then she gets sworn in at the town clerk's office.
Okay,
Yeah. So the letter will go out to you tomorrow. Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr.
Thanks,
Chairman, could I ask that we take another item out of order? I see Dorothy Smith is here.
Okay.
thank you, Rachel.
And she's on the, currently an associate member of the Council on Aging, and will be moving up to a regular member.
Okay. Certainly, we'll be happy to take it out of order. So likewise, if you wouldn't just step up to the podium for a second.
The wall was
And likewise, thank you for volunteering, really do appreciate it. So if you want to just spend a minute telling us a little bit about yourself, that would be great.
My pleasure. It's an exciting time to be on the board of the Walpole Council on Aging, and we are regularly updating new programs being offered at the Walpole Cooperative Bank South Street Center. I attend the meetings regularly, and I participate in several programs. Currently, I am an associate member, and I look forward to becoming a regular member.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for volunteering. Really appreciate it. Any questions from the board?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I'll just make a comment. As you mentioned, there's a lot of great things going on at the Council on Aging, and having moved from, this building to that building has really opened it up for a lot of people. And I know, depending on the day and what's going on, 2.5 to 3 times as many people are coming in on a daily basis. And they're not just coming in for an hour for that program, they're staying and participating and socializing with friends. And I think it's a great thing, and I think the board is doing a great job, so thank you for all that you've done.
Could I just add something?
Sure.
I spent many hours in this room engaged in the yoga program, and we would all try to get here early to be up to the front of the room, because if you were anywhere near the heating ducts, in the wintertime, the hot air was so bad, and in the summer, the air conditioning was so bad that it was really a problem. So this is absolutely beautiful what has been done here, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it very much.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
All the men are good work.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I will make a motion to appoint Dorothy Smith as a regular member on the Council on Aging.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 5-0-0. Thank you again very
Thank
much
you.
for volunteering. And as we just said with Rachel, Cindy will reach out to you with a letter and you can come down and be sworn in, okay?
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, next up, we have an update from the Town Hall Reuse Committee. So I know we have a number of members from that committee here. Mr. Pila. So what we're going to hear tonight is an update on the work that this committee has been doing for the last many months as they've looked at the Old Town Hall and have some ideas on how we might potentially reuse the building.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now we'll get started.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Do it. Okay, good.
There you go.
come bearing gifts. Bearded white man.
Getting
Oh,
lighter and lighter.
There you go.
guy with a white beard handing out gifts. That's a pretty picture.
Can we dim the lights?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Selectmen, on behalf of my fellow committee members, Cliff Barnes, Beth Pellick, Ron Facile, Roger Turner, Mark Trudell, and Christine Cochran, who is unable to be with us this evening because of her work obligations. I do want to note that Christine did yeoman's work on this project, recording the minutes and all of the conversations that went back and forth. And as you probably can imagine, over almost a 2-year period, we had a lot of meetings. So there were a lot of minutes that were taken, and Christine was invaluable. So I do want to make mention of that. I also want to thank Patrick Shield. Where is he? Patrick. He made life easy for us, kept us focused, and provided all kinds of support services that were instrumental in helping us put this report together. Because we have a limited amount of time, the report that you have in front of you covers many areas that we looked at. We're not going to get into all of that this evening because of the limited amount of time. However, each of you are going to be quizzed tomorrow morning to see if you actually read the report before you go to bed this evening. So Patrick said that he would send around a questionnaire at 7 a.m. We'll see if you pass or not.
We'll see how we do.
One thing I do want to mention is what was our objective? Not that. Next slide. From the very beginning, we said that we wanted to really take a hard look at how that building could be reused in a way that not only would be what it was when it was first constructed back in 1881, where it was the focal point of the community, of the Walpole community. The number of cultural and social activities that took place under the roof of the Walpole Townhouse. And that's the name that was given to it then, and the name that we would like to see it be referred to going forward. No more the old town hall, but the Walpole Townhouse. And we wanted to do this in a way that was feasible and financially feasible, and would not be a burden on the taxpayers. And so we looked at a number of different, not only the options, but how they would be funded. So there are a number of slides, highlights different aspects of the building. All of this is in your report. This evening, there are 3 parts to delivery. That's the first part, is what I just went through. The second part is something that Mark Almeida, past the chairman of the Walpole Historical Commission, local architect who has worked on many projects throughout the Commonwealth and probably beyond, is going to get into his report. As you recall, in the fall, 2018 fall town meeting granted, appropriated $15,000 to hire a consultant that could really dig into the building, so that we really understood, so everybody understood, not only what the potential is, but the challenges that that building faced. A building that is 138 years old. There's a tremendous amount of deferred maintenance. And before you can begin to say, this is what we would like to do with the building, you have to understand what the building is today. So I'm going to introduce Mark Almeida, and then I'll be back for part 3. Thanks.
Good evening, I'm Mark Almeida of Mark Almeida Architects. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to give you a summary of the findings in our report. You should read the report because this is only a brief overview, even though it may take more time than the time I was allowed, which I didn't know about. The important thing about this image, this rendering, this perspective, is that it was done in 1882. The town hall is 1 year old. It's also, if you notice, it's a prominent building. It's in the center of town. massing is far more larger than most of the buildings. It's one of the tallest buildings in town as well. So tonight I'm going to go, there's going to be 4 parts to this. I'm going to tell you what the purpose was. I'll tell you what the essential repairs need to be done for the building. I'll look at reuse and preservation of the building, and I'll have some closing comments. This was done for the town as an aid to the town and the Old Town Hall Reuse Committee, which I'll just call the committee. It's too many words. The first part was to survey, assess, and recommend and assign probable costs for necessary repairs and upgrades to the building, as well as the reuse of it. And then I was also charged with providing 2 schemes that were directed by the committee in terms of its reuse. And lastly, the goal of the study is to provide information that would allow the town to make better informed decisions, as well as for future work on the project. I wasn't the only one in the assessment team, even though in the past 12 years, 90% of my work is preservation architecture. I also had a consultant who did all the structural assessment, a cloud consultant, and they specialize in historic structure. So they did all the structural reports, and all the structural information that I'm giving you on this is from their report. We also had a mechanical engineering consultant to look at some of the air conditioning components to see if they were reusable. So the essential repairs are the normal maintenance repairs to the exterior. The essential repairs to the interior include life safety issues, lighting, fire stopping, railings, structural improvements. All these I'll get into in a little more detail as I progress. And then the last was the selective demolition of the interior non-historic materials to gain access for the repairs that need to be done, as well as to open up the second floor hall. Opening up the second floor hall was one of the directions given by the committee itself, to better understand the volume of the original town hall. So essential repairs, there's falling slates. When I say selective repairs, I'm not saying the entire building needs to be done. The entire roof does not have to be done. It doesn't have to be repointed. There are actually minimal amounts of repairs. Most of the repairs have been done over time, and it looks very good. But there are broken slates on the ventilator and some of the flashing, as well as some maintenance issues, like the gutter on the right-hand side is filled with water, so it needs to be cleaned out at the outlet or either the downspout. There's also some damage, especially showing this for there's a valley where the 2 roofs intersect. And that's critical because it's continuing to leak in the building. And if you see some of the prior images shown of the interior there, there's a lot of damage to the ceilings. So there's an example of the falling plaster on the ceiling, and that's pretty much a large part where the valley's. There's also trim issues with the belfry. There's spalling, brownstone, that's pretty common. Those things can be repaired quite easily. And then there's some repointing, like maybe 200 square feet on the exterior of the building at the chimneys and upper part. The inside of the clock room does have some corroding mortar joints that need to be repaired. The structural upgrades, they're triggered by the change in use of the building. So it's going from a business use to an assembly use. And not only an assembly use, but the desire is to have it over 300 feet to make it marketable. And because of that, it makes the risk factors for the building quite different, which causes code upgrades to be necessary. So there's seismic, which are earthquake improvements to the roof, so it doesn't slide off the structure. It may be adequate enough, but that needs to be investigated. The first floor brick walls are not all tied together. We need 100 bricks, so we require certain ties to them to the walls. The brick tower itself is sitting on a steel frame just above the second floor. And while it has some timber framing there to brace it, it will require some steel, additional steel in order to make it compliant. The town hall itself, it's good to know that the second floor, the joists are more than adequate for a 300-plus person capacity, as well as for other events. However, the beams themselves will need just some minor sistering of LVLs and the posts in order to make them adequate. And then the foundation wall underpinnings, Back in '83, they undermined the foundation walls, which in terms of modern codes needs to be corrected. So that work will have to be done, as well as the brackets for the balcony as they come back when they put the ceiling in the '50s for the second offices on the second floor. They took those brackets out, so that needs to be done. So these essential repairs, I won't go through the numbers there, but the bottom line is for all of those repairs, the estimate, the probable cost is $1,077,600. There is some stenciling still remaining inside the building. It's very small, but that's what the town hall originally was stenciled in the color truck, right? Other influences, there's no site plan for the building. The building needs to be located for any use or any marketing capability. It's not located in the property line between the fire station and the town hall is not definitive. The HVAC, the mechanical engineer, basically his report said we see no scenario. They're incorporating the existing air conditioning equipment, and that's for multiple reasons. From it being past their service of life to changes in the refrigerant, required cost to upgrade them to present codes. Electrical system, you've heard from past reviews, it will not be reusable for any use of the building. It's mainly set up for a business use. Fire suppression system, there is no sprinklers in the building that will need to take place. And some of these are just for your information, that any work done on the town hall, the hazardous materials that are found, some of them just recently removed, they will need to be removed before the demolition or renovation takes place. Accessibility is an important thing. I won't go through this whole thing, but the key thing is the assessed value of the town hall is currently only $450,100. And in terms of accessibility, in terms of the architectural access for it, regulations 521 CMR, the key value is 30% of that, which as you can see is only $155,000 approximately. So once that, given the exceptions, which you can read, but once, if you look at the bottom line, once you've exceeded that 30,000, the entire building has to be accessible. You can apply for variances. I've done that in the past, so and they generally accept them for historic structures. You still need to provide access to the neighbors and current codes. I'm going to charge us to look at the historic fabric of the building, what's historic and what is not historic. So if you look at this, the blue lines are significant parts of the historic structure. This is the ground floor plan. And I'll quickly go through the other ones. The other thing that's sort of black and white, those things are non-contributing. That's all the infill that was used for the police station, locker rooms, and so forth. None of that is historic structure. That can be removed. Obviously, the jail cells are important. Same with the first floor. If you look at that space to the right, originally 2/3 of that square on the far right-hand side was a lower hall, and that's all been infilled. Also, the vicinity of the elevators and so forth. None of that's of historic content. So there's some of the walls remaining, but they're sort of not that significant. But they're contributing, that's in green. Mostly the masonry walls, the stairs, the tablets, and those sort of things are part of artifacts that we can retain or methods come up with in order to good challenge changes. Second floor, it's all been infilled. There was once a grand hall. The balcony, obviously, the balcony subsection, some of the walls there. And from this report, the critical thing was to come up with an approach on how to address the historic nature of the building. Obviously, the exterior of the building is historic, it has been maintained, and should be retained and done for it. The important part is on the interior. There's been a lot of infill in the building between the 50s and the 80s, and that is not significant. It also fills the space. You can't even see what the space was originally like on the first floor or the second floor, what it was originally. And so from this, it's more desirous to return the building interior to the original spatial configuration. I'm not saying to return all the walls and everything else, but the exterior walls, the interior of those exterior walls, the ceilings and so forth should be brought back. Not necessarily the paint finishes and so forth, because quite marred and hidden now, depending on budgets, but the spatial configuration should be brought back. And so the story of the hub, in terms of the town hall, would be lost. So its integrity of those alterations of the 50s to the present remain. And then, of course, anything that's remaining of historic character should be restored. Second part of this was to come up with the direction of the committee, several design schemes for the building. The first scheme relies on retaining the elevator, the semi-closed elevator, and the egress stairs throughout the building, all the way up, to the second floor. And I'll address that as well. So I was charged with designing uses of the building that were marketable. So there's a bakery, deli down there, 72 persons. Second floor is a restaurant. You can still see the same core there, taking up space of the elevator. Existing bathrooms reconfigured slightly for the restaurant. Third floor becomes this flexible space room, so there can be a function banquet room. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see also it's a meeting room that can seat 105 to 150 persons. And then the balcony is used for seating for meetings that happen on the second floor. But here's a summary. Scheme 1 retains the existing masonry wall, stair and elevator core on all floors, retains the existing first floor bathrooms, so other use of the scheme units, both stairs and elevator, save initial startup costs. The layout severely limits the useful square footage. The cost for this scheme 1 is $5,530,963. Obviously, it doesn't include equipment and furnishings. The second scheme was there's usable space, because that green line is actually the setback line. There's no regulations to a certain extent about distance between the property lines, so there are fire distance between buildings. But you can put additions on either side of the building, someone could do that and still retain most of the character of the building. It's preferred you would do it on that side because that's the least observed side in terms of retaining the character, exterior character of the building. So by adding an addition, you can put all those ancillary things like bathrooms and janitor's closets, and mechanical rooms, and fire escapes and so forth, and take the pressure off the use of the existing town hall. So in this use, there's a huge bump up in the number of persons that can be served. The first floor is a pub, second floor is a restaurant with 158 persons. Once again, there's a flexible use of the second floor, but now you see the grandness of the original common space in there, because that's the full extent of what the space was originally. We didn't bring back there was a stage there, but that's not necessary to bring back. And same with the balcony supports the use of the second floor of the meeting hall. So scheme 2 removes all the mid and late 20th century office walls, barrier walls, obviously following the name, and associated ceilings in order to open up the space. Approximately 28 by 54 addition is added. This increases the new space in the existing building. They take those spaces and putting them into the addition. The other thing is this scheme also relocates the diesel fueling station because it's contained and it meets the current codes, but if you want to get closer to it, public ways and public parts of buildings need to be a certain distance away by code. The probable cost for scheme 2 is $7,814,945. This is my final thoughts. Old Town Hall is a historic civic symbol of the town's growth and development from the days of the sawmill and its private dead with cold and drafty town meetings at the meeting house, according to records by Lewis, to an economic rise in the 20th century due to the Neponset River Associated Industry. So it's an important building and it reflects all the things that have taken place in the past, pretty much up to the present. The money was well spent back in the 1880s. The building is actually in excellent shape. That was the first thing the structural engineer told me. He said overall, it's in excellent shape and it's adaptable for modern use. Maintenance repairs, they're obviously necessary in any building in town. And historic buildings require a certain level of stewardship as well. And so the Old Town Hall needs capital improvements. Those are the ones, essential ones I talked about in the beginning, in order to keep the building from deteriorating any further. as well as to stimulate interest.
Thank you, Mark. One of the things that we wanted to, that we did not want, was to present you with a report that winds up on Jim Johnson's bookcase, collecting dust. What we did want is to provide a report with viable options for you to consider. An action plan. Many of the things that you'll see in the report goes beyond perhaps what many would think. We wanted to, we looked at a lot of different options. The use that was expressed by 10 times the number of people, 10 times what other uses, suggested uses, was a performance arts center. And a group of us went to TCAN in Natick. I don't know if you're all familiar with that facility. It's been in business, I think, for about 13 years and wildly successful. And the question was, well, why can't we do that with the Walpole Townhouse? 2 reasons. TCAN was a former fire station. 1.5 levels, maybe 2 levels, has a footprint of 7,000 square feet. The footprint of this building is 3,981 square feet. The size of space dictates what you can and cannot use that space for. And so that was a challenge that we could not overcome. In order to have sufficient seating capacity that would generate revenues in order to support the improvements to be made as well as the operating expenses. So as much as we would like to see something like that, this building just cannot accommodate it. Blackburn Hall can, but that's a subject for another day. So the other thing that we had to consider was, how is it going to pay for itself? What uses can generate the kind of revenues in order to support the improvements, debt service, the operating expenses. And so when we sat down, when Mark said, well, what do you want me to plan? It had to do with food and beverage, functions, and we came up with those uses that can afford to pay the rent. Whether the town retains ownership or master leases the property, those are the functions that can fit into that size space and generate the kinds of revenues in order to be able to afford the rents that we're looking for. You'll see in one of the sections, one of the pullouts, there's income and expense pro forma. And Mark Trudell, who made sure, oh, here he is, made sure that the numbers added up. Went through those numbers. And that pro forma, it's conservative, and those rents are achievable. And so the money, the revenues that those operations can do in that building, if you have the right operators, not somebody who decides that they want to go into the business because it is so wonderful and a lot of fun, but with actual professionals who know the business, or those businesses. Bring those kinds of people in, and they'll do those numbers, and they'll actually exceed those numbers. Those were what we felt, what we believe, the most feasible uses, not only from the financial standpoint, but we see this building as the catalyst for any redevelopment of the downtown. If Walpole's downtown is ever going to be truly successful, if it's ever going to function the way a downtown needs to function for its citizenry, that building is going to set the tone. And if that building is successful, it will demonstrate to the kinds of businesses, the kind of operators, the kinds of tenants that you want to be able to attract to downtown, that will change it from the sleepy place that it is today to something that's vibrant, dynamic, and a place that people are going to want to gravitate towards. In the appendix, one of the things that we did was we looked at Walpole and what it has to offer and its demographic profile and compared it to 6 or 7 other similar communities that have very successful downtowns. And if you look at the information, Walpole will rank among the highest of those communities. The guts is here, but we cannot accommodate the uses that are going to make it what I would like to say most people would like to see it as downtown. How do you pay for this? Well, we offered a number of different funding sources, but the ones that would make, in my opinion, and is capital lease financing, or better still, the JD Development Partnerships. There's another pullout right after the section in the book that identifies 4 different blocks of real estate that are very much underutilized, and that if they were redeveloped, you could create something very special in that downtown. Someone said, well, why can't we get a Brothers market? Brothers, as you know, is owned by Roach Brothers. There's one in downtown. They converted a former furniture store into a very, a place that everybody in Medfield goes to. But it's 10,000 square feet. We don't have one 10,000 square foot unit of space on one floor in the downtown, other than you have CVS, okay, but they're not going anywhere, nor do you want them somewhere else. So you need to create these kinds of spaces that can accommodate the uses that will really make downtown Walpole special. One of the subjects that we spend a lot of time on is what's in the best interest of the town. Does the town keep the building, spend the money that it may or may not be able to afford? The taxpayers are going to know that. I have to address that. But do you sell it to somebody who can come in, who has the deep pockets, who has the development expertise, who has the operating expertise, who has the ability to attract the kinds of tenants, operators, who can make that building successful? Maybe there's a middle ground. So we tried to look at all the different options. And so where did we wind up? We're saying that 2 things should happen. The Board of Selectmen need to really get behind that building and support it. Without the town's support of that building, however you want to define support, it's not going to happen. You need the participation and the full support, actual support of the town. The second thing is that we feel that in the best interest of the town is that, and given the historic aspect of that building and what it means to the town and the people of Walpole, is that the Board of Trustees be set up, a trust, Friends of the Walpole Townhouse. The second thing is that as much time as that we spent and all of the different ideas that we looked at, I bet there is something else out there that we didn't think about that could be the solution, that could be the use, that could really make that building make that building for what it was intended for when it was first built in 1881. And so we're suggesting that an RFP be issued to the widest possible audience there is, because somebody out there, either they have deep pockets or they got a fabulous idea, can maybe be the magic to make that building happen. One of the examples that I use in this type of a discussion, the town of Plainville, 2 towns south of here, 2 towns, 3 towns, there was a very famous children's artist who was from Plainville, and he made a lot of money. He was very successful in writing children's books all over the world. And there was this structure right in the middle of town that was ready to fall down. I think they were ready to condemn it. And it didn't have half the quality, the architectural qualities that the Walpole Townhouse has. He came in, said, I'll buy it. He spent the money in it, and now that is the center of social life in that community. He took an eyesore that was ready to fall down. Well, maybe there is somebody like that who was born and raised in Walpole. Maybe it's another children's book artist, writer. Maybe it's somebody else. But that person, or those people are out there, and we need to reach out to them. So at this stage, that would be our number 1 recommendation, is to open this thing up, let people know. In the appendix, one of the things that we added were some of the marketing collateral. First of all, you got to explain to people why they should take a serious look at Walpole, and then why they should focus on the downtown, not Route 1.
Right. So before you go down that path, and I know you're trying hard to squeeze a lot of things into a relatively short period of time, but we also need to get to some other things, and I do want to leave a little bit of time for discussion here on the board. So that said,
that's it, I'm done.
I just want to thank you and the committee for putting the time and energy into this, and Mark Almeida as well, for helping us to think some of these things through. And I've got a couple other thoughts as well, but before I do that, I'd like to open it up to the board for further discussion. So any questions for Mr. Pila and the committee? David, go ahead.
So if I could have Mr. Almeida back up, please. I have a couple of questions. One is the preservation for now until we figure out what we're going to do with this building. Should we be doing something about mothballing it, removing the water systems, somehow keeping the structure vacant but safe?
That's what the essential repairs is. There's a list, an itemized list in the back, and seeing all these probable costs for that. And so the essential ones are, you've got to seal the exterior from the wet. So that's the first thing. And those things aren't much cost. Until you do certain repairs, you don't have to do most of the structural. However, I think opening up the second floor and taking out those partitions in there will really serve to create interest in it in marketing. Everything else, yeah, you've got to, there's certain issues, the fire department and so forth, with vacant buildings and so forth. I know there's someone in there now. But there's certain things that can stay in place, but the air conditioning system is eventually going to go. The heating system is adequate, there's a boiler in there now. Things like that. So those things can be maintained, but minimally you have to do those couple items.
Do we continue to have to heat it? And
yes, you have to.
Okay.
If you never heated the building, there'd be no real problem. That's historic buildings. But once you start heating it and everything, there's moisture in the masonry. There's other issues there. Once you, it's been used all these years, you have to keep it heated.
Okay.
Sure.
I see that, I mean, if we go, I don't know if you can get back to the slide with the ceiling joists in it. I think,
That's yours. Oh,
and I agree with the desire to bring those back, the actual picture, into the use of the building, the space. And I think, in a way, because of because of wanting to see that grandeur of the main meeting floor back, that we've limited ourselves to uses that use that entire meeting space as one space. And what I think we ought to look at as well is the possibility of splitting the space. There's in Sandwich is a converted church where what they did was made office space on half of the building, 2 floors of office space in the grand space room. So you were still able to enjoy 51% of the ceiling, but you got the additional space. And what was on the ground floor was like a public space, and then offices along the sides. And as Mr. Peeler pointed out, one of the issues with this building and its future, the way that we get this building to last for another 100 years, is that it has to be financially viable for 100 years. And that's why the theater doesn't work in nonprofits. Some of that, you're gonna lose that financial viability. But I think if we were able to look at that space in the way I just described and have individual small office spaces that can be rented out and divided, rather than relying on one tenant to take up this entire space or one restaurant to survive, will be more financially viable than doing this. And I wonder if we were to do office space, does that stave on some of the structural issues that you talked about with the meeting spaces?
That was the question asked the committee. I mean, they're looking at it from a marketing point of view, and I'm in total agreement in terms of the current market. These are more viable spaces, but anyone can renovate that space to anything they want.
Right.
And you can create some very interesting spatial places, reusing the upper floor. There's enough space in there, so you don't have headroom issues. You can create double floor spaces. You can put offices in there, but that wasn't the charge I was given.
Right.
Because that's what I said. What do you want to do with this? Because there's so many scenarios that this building can be used for, and it would be beautiful.
Right. So what I'm saying is that if we are going to go out for an RFP that captures people's attention, that an office space option, if it costs us more money to have you look at that, is something that ought to be part of that RFP.
Yeah, I think that's part of the RFP is.
But
You let the marketplace determine what is feasible and isn't. We looked at all, the reason why we focused on hospitality, food and beverage, and that's not just one operator, there's multiple operators, multiple businesses that are in those plants. There's no market for office space. And they cannot pay, you cannot get the rents from an office use that you can from those other uses.
and just to quickly, one of the things a lot of people in town here say, oh, it's a historic building, you can't touch it, but the fact is, there can be modern additions to these buildings, is that correct?
Yes, that's what we did. We added the modern addition to it. We reused the inside. Once you open up the space to the way it originally was, vacant buildings are a big problem. Vacant buildings have no tenants, there's no money flow, the places deteriorate, and that's throughout the Commonwealth. I've seen that, and that's been a big drive of the state as well.
And I think certainly the position of the current elevator ruins the use of that main floor, because it will come up right in the middle of it. I think the most viable option to make the best use of the building is to have an addition to the north side of the building that would provide the elevator space, the stairways, as you had done.
There was talk about using it.
So before we get
Sure.
into that, we're designing solutions here, so, and I think we're a long way away from that. So, nice thinking, good feedback, David, but I think.
Can I hear his response?
The committee, I think.
That's my last question. Can I hear his response?
Sure.
I'll make it quick. The addition to a building can be anything. It can be apartments. It can be anything that makes it viable and useful and make a beautiful living space for, if it was broken up into certain things. The important thing is to have a tenant there and know what you're preserving on the interior.
Great, thank you. Nancy?
Just three things. One, thank you, everybody, for the amount of time that you guys have spent on this. It's evident, it's, appreciated and awesome. Two, in potential funding, I know we haven't adopted the Community Preservation Act, but I would think that should maybe be mentioned because it would be a possibility, because it's not based on what we have right now. So I did notice that was missing. And then three, what I would like to do right now is be able to give this report enough time that it deserves and to be able to look it over and read it and process it. And my thoughts are that then we come back and kind of discuss it as how we want to go forward.
Thank you. Ben, anything?
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you so much for putting this together, all the financials, all the information that's in there. I think it's going to be hugely helpful. I would like to take it, chew on it, kind of digest it, digest all the options and the layouts. I think that I like the idea to kind of shoot for the stars on it and aim high, and go big and all those sorts of phrases. And at the same time, I'm reminded, looking around downtown, of the other buildings that are vacant, of the other parcels that are there for the taking. And I'm cognizant of not necessarily adding one more building to that mix of, we need a Hail Mary or we need one giant investor. And I want to keep all the options open and on the table to what we can do. So again, I want to read this, digest it, and more to come. Quite oftentimes, the easiest step is the first one, and the hardest is then where you put your foot on the second step. So it's a great start. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Mark?
Yeah, I would say thanks. I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. I do actually look forward to looking through all the detail. I had skimmed through this before, but you have a lot more meat here, especially the financial data. I always like to analyze from the point of view of how we're going to pay for these things. And I did take one thing out of your presentation there, Mark, that there are some things that need to be done right away to continue to preserve the physical structure. And that's something I want to take a look at, and I'm sure the whole board does, and we'll talk to Jim about, what needs to be done fairly quickly to preserve it while we consider, the future use and what the next step is. But thanks for all that effort, and I really do appreciate it.
And I'll just close by saying I'm in the same spot. So I appreciate all the work that you've done. I think it's a great start. I think it's giving us a lot of information, some things to think about. I think there's a lot more that needs to be discussed here than we can cover tonight. So, and it seems like the basic tenor of the board is, look, let's just take a look at this. I think what we probably need to do is to avoid put it on Jim Johnson's shelf, as you said earlier, Richard. I think we ought to set 30 days out to come back and let's have a session on it. Perhaps we should do a workshop on it as opposed to try and shoehorn it into one of these meetings where we can spend a couple hours talking about nothing but this. And now that you've laid the groundwork, I think we could actually get into some meaty conversations. So if that's agreeable to you and your committee, that's what I'd like to recommend.
Well, that's what we were hoping you would say.
Okay, terrific. Well, let's do that then. And so just work with Cindy and let's figure out a time, give us 30 days or so to make sure that we can go through this. Again, No, I don't see us moving forward on anything until we've had quite a bit more conversation, to be honest with you, Cliff. And I know there's a lot of desire to do that. Heck, I wish I could wave a magic wand and just make it happen. That isn't going to happen. So I think we've got to put the right time into it, but you have given us a very good start. So I want to thank you and the committee again, and let's pull up in 30 days after we've had a chance to go through this and spend a couple hours on it, okay?
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Very much for the honor.
Very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is open forum. So could I get a sense for anybody in the room who would like to speak at open forum? Just raise your hands if you're here for open forum. Okay, I don't see anybody, so we'll move on with the new business part of our agenda. So Nancy, you want to take us through the various motions that we've got?
Yeah, Yes, all righty.
Gee, Nancy's not the clerk.
Oh.
I'm continuing past
Okay.
precedent
Yeah.
as we did
Okay,
whole,
that's
the whole
fine.
last year.
I'll make a
She was the
motion.
clerk last year.
Housewife.
Wait,
Yeah.
who's the clerk?
I was.
Okay.
Good to know, huh? Okay.
Do you have a call?
All right, Nancy.
I'll make a motion to open the warrant for the fall town meeting and close it on August 20th, 2019.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstained, 500.
Make a motion to authorize the town administrator to do a reserve fund transfer up to $5,000.
I'll second that.
So a motion and a second. I think, Jim, maybe just a couple of minutes on, a couple of seconds on what we're trying to accomplish here.
Sure, this is mostly to streamline some of the smaller miscellaneous items that may come up. The Finance Committee is set to meet at the end of this month to take a similar vote. I don't anticipate anything at this time. The only real item I anticipate is an interdepartment transfer to cover Bob LeBlanc for his departure. And that's on your board and their agenda, but this is just a housekeeping thing in case there's any last-minute maneuvering that needs to get done to make sure the books close and we're okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Make a motion to approve the year-end transfer in the amount of $12,000 to cover the deficit in highway administration, PR caused by employee resignation payout.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Make a motion to approve the request of Notch Brewing for 4 one-day beer license at Bird Park on June 15th, 16th, and August 17th and 18th, Saturdays. They're 2 to 7 p.m. Sundays are 1 to 6 p.m., subject to them meeting the conditions of the police department, that there will be one officer 1 hour before the start and 1 hour after the conclusion of the event, and that if the police department determines public safety requires a second officer, they will be responsible for paying for the second officer for subsequent dates.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I have a question. Is this a fundraiser of sorts, or is this just a rental of the space, or?
I
believe
believe,
it's a fundraiser.
is it a fundraiser, but it's being run, I believe, by the trustees, isn't it? They did it one time. Yeah, they did it one time last year, and it was a humongous success. And I know that, there were tons of families and things like that, young families.
My question is this a commercial enterprise on Bird Park, or is it a fundraiser for Bird Park? I mean, I don't have any information on this.
Yeah, it's on 6/5, it's like a,
Anyone here on this?
the application.
Yeah. Oftentimes when we approve these Mondays,
It says fundraiser right here.
Pop-up fundraiser.
I wish I knew more about what it was raising funds for and what it was. And to me, it's,
Yeah, I would just chime in and say I'm comfortable with this, but, if we, and I see it's coming up soon, so I'd recommend we approve it, but I'm not opposed to seeing us ask more of Bird Park. What do they have in mind? What are they fundraising for? Is it just to maintain the grounds, or is there something special they're hoping to do there? It's a good organization over there, the trustees, but.
Yeah, the trustees of the reservation are who is on the insurance.
So I think we should follow Mark's sage words of wisdom, and
I'll make a motion to approve the request of Notch Brewing Company for 2 one-day beer licenses at Bird Park on June 15 and June 16, Saturdays from 2 to 7 p.m. and Sundays from 1 to 6, subject to them meeting the conditions of the police department. Was there already a motion?
Second.
There was already a motion?
Yeah.
it was.
All
Whatever.
right.
It's
Never
okay.
mind. It's all right.
going to be the
wasn't going to
second.
pass anyway.
All right, we have,
So that's only for half the date, right? Half the
Well, I
date.
wanted them to come back for the other two. I'd like to see them and to ask them some questions.
so I think what you're doing is modifying the motion that's
Yes,
on-
I would seek to modify the motion to 2 days, and the 2 June days. And it is disappointing that, I mean, yesterday we approved last meeting, we approved a bunch of things for August and October and September, and the trustees are coming to us with days to spare on this one.
So Nancy, are you
Second.
okay with that?
Yes,
Okay.
the second.
So we're dealing just with 6:15 and 6:18, 6:16. We will come back for 8:17 and 8:18, is that what we're saying?
That's what I'm suggesting, yes.
And what we'd like to hear, David, I think you're saying, is a clarification on what the fundraiser is for? I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
So maybe we can get the applicant to come in,
Or maybe we could just
or they could give us a write-up.
just call them and ask them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that the trustees have something on their website about this. I don't know that it says specifically what the
Well,
money goes towards.
I'd like
but,
to see them here and see I'd like to know how much of this they're making and how much is, how much is,
Didn't we do this last year?
It was the
But it was one
first
night.
time ever, and they did it one day.
Okay.
I don't remember if they gave us that information then. I'm not sure. They may have, and that's why they're not giving it to us again.
So here's what I suggest. I think it's a fair question to say, okay, what are we fundraising for? So David, I agree with you. I also agree that we're right up on the date, and so approving the first 2 probably makes the most sense. And then I think just a phone call or a note out to them, Cindy, to ask them to just give us a little more information, I think will be satisfactory. I don't really think we need to have them come in here to talk to us about it, unless, David, you feel really strongly about that. Okay? Okay, so I have a motion and a second, and to be clear, we're talking about approving this request for June 15th and June 16th. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye? 500. And then we'll just bring back for a future meeting the other 2 dates.
I'll make a motion to approve the request to use Jarvis Farm for October 12th for Jarvis Harvest.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500.
I'll make a motion to approve the Halloween parade to be held on October 26th, 2019.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500.
I'll make a motion to approve the request to have live music on July 3rd, 2019, from 6 to 9 p.m. and from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m.
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
This is for the town field, right?
You talking about Freddie's thing?
Is this, well,
This is their private thing.
oh, okay, so,
Yeah, we
from
don't-
10 p.m. till 12,
Police don't have an issue.
okay.
I think what we're
At
saying is,
front on, what is that, Front
Front
Street?
Street. And
What's the address number?
40, we don't.
At 40
we
Front
ask
Street,
them not to play music during the fight.
during the fireworks, yes. So I'm just, a motion
That's what we did last
to add on to that at 40 Front Street.
and also a rain date to coincide. If the
Oh.
fireworks get moved, they want to move it.
And with a rain date of July 5th.
okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500. Okay, next up, we have an item under new business to talk about generally the board's view on what we should be doing next with the fields. So by setting some context here, we had a proposal that we, as a board last year, put on the warrant and advocated for at town meeting. The proposal involved borrowing, which meant that it was a 2/3 requirement of town meeting, and it fell 3 votes short. So the item did not pass. So the question now before us is, we've opened the warrant, we've got the fall town meeting coming up. I'd like to get a sense from the board as to what our position should be with respect to the fields, Do we bring it back again as a similar article that we brought before? Do we break it up into pieces? We want to just have some general discussion here so we can give Jim some direction on the, how to put the warrant together. So, thoughts?
I can jump in.
Sure,
start
Mark.
if you want.
Yep.
So, as you mentioned, I think there's two or three possible alternatives. One is scale it way down, go with like 2 fields and the lights, go with the turf fields, the lights, and gravel parking lot, and just get started. Sort of think of it as a phase 1. I think another option would be to come back with a similar plan to last time, more stripped down, eliminate, all the asphalt, most of the asphalt, make it simpler, fewer trees and shrubs and all that kind of stuff. Probably even eliminate anything that's not field related. As an example, there's a playground that was originally proposed, and I think we really do need an ADA handicapped playground for kids, but maybe that's something that could be fundraised for. I know there have been some other fundraisers in towns for things like that. So to me, those are the 2 big ones, and then there's lots of variants. So, if I would kind of like to take a look at what could we do with the 2 turf fields and lights, roughly what would that cost? And then maybe if we could also take a little bit of a look at more of a stripped down 4-field version, and see what that would look like price-wise. So, I think we heard from people at town meeting that the plan was a little too pricey, and I think it would be nice to, see what options we really have. So, again, that's just me, so.
Great, thanks, Mark. Other thoughts?
Yeah.
Ben.
Next. After the vote took place, and I heard from a lot of people since the vote. I think that we saw through the election, the campaign, the discussions that everybody had, there was a lot of support for the project in theory. I think that it needs to come back, not only because there's a demonstrated need for it in the athletic community, but because people want it, people need it. There's, as Mark mentioned, the ADA compliant playground. I think it's absurd that we don't have an ADA compliant playground here in Walpole. So some people might think that that's an extra, or that's additional, that's not needed. I disagree. I think that's absolutely a requirement. I don't think that 2 fields are needed. After seeing all the presentations at town meeting, it's clear that there's 4 fields that are needed. And I spent a lot of time this spring going around with my daughter's lacrosse team to different games at other schools, and they have all these things in other towns. They found ways to make this happen, to build the facilities that the community needs. So I would be in favor of bringing it back, absolutely for 4 fields, absolutely with a playground. If there are ancillary items such as asphalt parking lots that would contribute, or I should say reduce substantially the value of it and the ask for the town, I would be in favor of that. I think that those are things we can come back for later on a different budget. But I think that the town has spoken, and the town has responded to this and said that it's needed. So I think we should bring it back in whatever capacity we can.
Thanks.
Jim, can I mention just one more thing? On the playground, one of the things that struck me when we got the bids back is the playground looked very high, relatively speaking. And it may have been that, based on how we bid it out, that the general contractor really wanted to build fields and they were willing to do a playground, but maybe we weren't getting the best price. So if we go down that path where we do want to include the playground, I think we want to look at it from the point of view of, could that be something we as the town could do? Go out and get the proper equipment, but could we save a lot, half, a third, by managing that piece of it ourselves? And we obviously don't have the big heavy equipment to knock down the trees and level the ground and all that, but we certainly have proven we can build playgrounds and structures like that. So just an idea.
That's a fair point. Thanks.
And if I could add one other thing, Jim. These things don't get cheaper with time, they only get more expensive. And so people saying, and I know that the phased approach is really, it's really desirable, people hear that and they're like, oh yeah, we'll do a little bit now and a little bit later, kind of like you do with your house. You don't do all your windows at once, you do half at one time, half at another time. But this is a situation with millions of dollars at stake where it does not behoove us financially to do that. That is not a responsible position kick the can down the road and say, I'm sure we'll do it later, because we will spend more money. So I think that it's needed now. We need to do it now for fiscal reasons as much as the community's need.
Thank you, Ben. Other thoughts?
I think that we didn't do, as a board, a good enough job answering questions that town meeting had. I think that we didn't go over, a lot of people said that we needed the fields. That didn't seem to be the discussion as much. For some people I think those people aren't going to want fields no matter what. But the people that use the fields did agree that we need them. It's just that we didn't answer their questions as far as to make them feel comfortable that we weren't abandoning fields, or that we weren't managing the fields that we have in the right way, or educating them that we are overusing our fields and not giving them time to heal. And that could be why they look the way they are, or they, school's in session, so that is, they're also playgrounds and gym, places to have gym. So I think to take some responsibility, especially maybe coming off spending so much time doing all the buildings that we have just done and educating the town and all of that, that I think we took it a little bit for granted and didn't get all that information and answer everybody's question. So I think that we do need the fields and we should do that. I think Mark has a great point that, looking at the bids, that the playground was kind of high, and all our schools have done a good job of kind of fundraising for their own playgrounds, that I think that it's something that could probably come together. And not to mention, there may be grant money and things like that out there for something like that, especially where we don't have anything ADA. I know when we looked at the bids and were breaking them down, that Jim had mentioned that even just some of the shade structures, like some of those bids were completely different when it came to kind of pricing that out. And I think Mark might be right that that has to do with, this is a fields group that builds fields. They're not there to kind of build that other stuff. But I think that the foundation and what goes underground, I do think asphalt is important. The turf is important, the lights are important. I think that we should maybe take a week or two to kind of look at a few of these things, see if what we're talking about is right, and maybe at our next meeting, then make a decision as to what we're gonna do, because I think we have some good ideas, but let's kind of see what those numbers are.
And it was not my intention to take a vote tonight.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that I wanted to start the dialogue and get, the position of the board and start to have this dialogue. And, obviously we've got to decide before we close the warrant. But I think we have time to have proper conversation on this. So I'm totally good with what you just suggested.
Yeah, I'd like to see if we were gonna just kind of put some shade structures up somewhere. What would those normally be? What would a playground be on a nice flat piece of ground? If we weren't just having these field people, and I'm not saying I don't want to study, I just want a rough estimate of the difference of a cost as opposed to in this huge project.
Okay. David?
So, several things. One is that I think fields belong on that site and that we should develop fields on that site. Having said that, and so the concerns about the location and different things, that was not a concern of mine. People said, well, the kids can't bike there. I don't know many kids. We're almost dropping them off or going to the games together. It's never, the kids aren't riding the bikes. And if we can make a path up from Winter Street, if that will satisfy some of those things. And I hope there is a path or something from Winter Street. We've spent about $30 million on facilities in the last few years. This project is an extravagant expense. At $11 million, it's more expensive than the police station and the fire station. Asking the taxpayers to do that at this time is, with the middle school on the horizon, I think is, it's hard to sell. It's hard to tell them, oh, we just spent $11 million on fields. We maximized our debt budget, and now we're gonna ask for the maximum. So now everything we're gonna be asking for the school is gonna be in an override, and it's going to be an increase in your taxes. I would be in favor of looking at the possibility of, as Mark said, perhaps if you bid out separately just for the playground, maybe you get a different response by people who have experts in that. It's very possible that the general contractor for the fields just got a sub-bid contract from somebody else and added 8% to that, and ended up with the numbers that he came up with. As far as the turf fields, I'd be interested in looking at one turf field, and if we're gonna do a turf field, we might as well do lights to get the maximum use out of it. I think UV radiation and just time takes more of a toll on those fields than use. So I think if we're gonna do a turf field, that we should maximize that use. Maybe some grass fields, maybe not lights right now. And see what we can do with parking. That's the kind of thing I'd like to explore at this point.
Great, thank you. And the way I've been thinking about it is, first of all, I think we heard that there was a lot of concern over the overall price. So I think we've got to figure out ways to get the price down. And there's been some interesting discussion here as to some of the options that we might pursue. Here's another thing that we might want to think about. You know, would it be smart for us, because I don't think we want to go and put an article on the warrant that fails outright again. I think that'd be a real disaster, because we've put so much effort into this so far, and I think it's time to get something established up on those fields. And I think I'm hearing that across the board here. So one of the things we should probably think about is putting 2 articles on the warrant. One that says we're going to do, 2 artificial turf football fields, soccer fields, lacrosse fields, the lights, and then whatever kind of paving is required for that, and perhaps look at that playground, or maybe do it as an add-on, but sort of prep the area, that kind of thing. And could we do that without borrowing? That would be, one question. That puts us in a position to be able to deliver something without having to get that 2/3 vote. Then the other piece would be put another article on there that would require the 2/3 vote that says, how do I go the next step? However we define that, the baseball fields, however we defined it. And, it would be above what we could do without borrowing. And then, to your point, Nancy, do the sales work on it, do the education work on it, and see if people want to go down that route. So I think if we broke it up, I think we could probably position ourselves so that we don't get nothing. So we get something done, but also put the opportunity out there for people to do more if they choose to do it. So I throw that out there as an idea. We can chew on it for the next couple of weeks and see where we are, when we come back together in a couple of weeks. Does that make sense to everybody?
Well, just on the doing it with free cash, I think that's even a worse solution. Because I think what we should be doing over the next 5 years as we get ready for the building of the middle school is to stockpile as much free cash as we possibly can for the new middle school, and possibly for some work on Johnson that may not be reimbursed by the state, and so that we can say to the taxpayers when the override comes that we have been diligent in providing by trying to increase their taxes by the lowest amount possible. And if I don't agree that, I think losing at town meeting is a good thing. I'll tell you, the override won at town meeting last time, and the voters overwhelmingly rejected it. And what we ended up with was a very creative plan that we all can be proud of, that built those 3 buildings without an override, that told the taxpayers that we respect them and that we understand the burdens that they have. And if we go forward now and say, okay, we didn't win the 2/3, so now we're gonna go and spend free cash on this, I think that's spitting in their faces. And I think that, I think when the override comes, they may come right back at it. So, I would be opposed to exploring using free cash.
Any other final thoughts?
I do have
Ben?
one question. Talking about when we reconvene and we discuss this, and keeping in mind what you had said, Jim, does this allow us to, or I guess it's really for Jim, does that allow us to get bids and go to a town meeting with known values, or we're too
I really
tight?
need a sense of the board by probably your next meeting in order to, one of the things I was just doing was emailing Weston and Sampson saying, I gotta backtrack this from October 21st, and really that's gonna be my real end date, so I need to time this all out. So I really need a sense of the board by your next meeting.
Yeah.
Jim, we'd like you to go forward with this, maybe a hybrid of Jim's idea, which present a couple of different options to town meeting. Because I'm not gonna really know what the free cash is probably until, it won't be certified until maybe August 5th to the 20th. That's just a guess, somewhere in that time frame. So I won't even know what our free cash is. I'll have a rough idea potentially from Jody and Marilyn when the books close sometime after July 15th, July 25th, but it's going to take them some time. The DOR sometimes certifies less if they catch something on like a water retained earnings or we overspent on a grant. They'll hit our free cash up for that. So I'll have a general idea towards the end of July, but I won't know for sure.
Nancy?
Yeah, I think no matter what, that we owe it to revisit this to figure out what we're going to do, because we've already spent so many years and so much money and going through the town meeting process to get us to this point, that I think that if we just kind of walked away from it, that would be awful. So, you know, and David actually reminded me when they were saying about this site, like, you know, there is a lot of chatter out there all of a sudden now about this site not being appropriate, and yet it was, you know, voted on at town meeting years ago, it was studied. So I think that there was a kind of a lot of things going on, and I think that does go back to us kind of failing in our presentation. You know, like Porker Hill, taking Porker Hill down and like making that into a turf field, that really doesn't change the field status. It's still just one field, and that's actually a lot of money to dump into one field to not make it 2 fields. So I think that we failed, and I think that we can do better. And I think the fields report, the field study, I think past town meeting votes, past town meeting purchases show that this was the progression that the town has wanted to do over and over again. So, you know, personally taking responsibility, I think that we really do need to kind of grind this out and see what we can do.
So what I could do is basically part of the bids, we didn't have all the fields separated out there. It was just a blanket bid for the turf and grass field. So I can go back and look at the estimates that we received. But some of the items like the playground and the turf lights and the grass lights, we have set bids for. So I can give you a figure on that. I'd probably add 10 or 15%. Just going back to what Ben mentioned there, the cost always seems to go up. And we saw it from the police station, fire station to the COA costs jumped there because we waited to bid that one out to get the appropriation. So what I could probably give you prior to the meeting in 2 weeks is a couple of draft articles of, you know, building off of what David said and what Jim said, and then you guys can kind of make the call. Let's go with this, or let's for now leave these 2 on there, however you'd like to do it.
I mean, I also think the financial team did a really good job, not necessarily at town meeting, not because they didn't do a good job, but we didn't have it in the presentation as much as we did in meetings before about our debt limit, about where this brings us. so I feel like there was kinds of those pieces were missing too.
Right.
And then a question is, can we do a two-part article if we chose to?
We can. I think back to the police department. That article had 5 different funding sources identified in it. And then we came back at a later town meeting because when the bids came in, we were a little short on that. So I think it was like 1.5 or something like that the second time around. So I kind of already have the boilerplate to work off of.
So I think as you've listened to the conversation here, Jim, I think first of all, you hear a willingness on the part of the board to do something.
Yep.
There's a wide difference of views on what that something is, and that's not surprising. And, but I think you have got enough so you could start doing some legwork on it. And what I would ask is that each of us put some thought into this over the course of the next 2 weeks, and when we come back, be prepared to take a position, okay? This is what I think we should do, and let's see if as a board we can coalesce around something. And Jim, that should then give you plenty of time to be ready for town meeting, correct?
I think so.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So, good discussion, and that was really the intent of tonight, was to have some of this, you know, hard discussion, and I think we did that, so thanks for all the dialogue. All right, moving on to the next item in our, yes, I got, yeah, so go ahead.
I'll make a motion to award bid contract number 2019-08 water main replacement to PJ Hayes Corp. in the amount of $942,774.40.
I'll second that.
Just to follow up on that one, you may recall that about 2 meetings ago, this was on the agenda. I actually asked the board to pull it because we wanted some verification on a few things. I had Rick touch base with PJ Hayes Corp. just to verify that they can get the job done. I believe there's a 180-day window on that one. PJ's confirmed he can get it done, and they're all set to start the project because they undertook a few other jobs. But PJ's confirmed with Rick that it'll get done in the time frame specified.
Okay.
So I'm all set.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Okay, we've nothing under old business. Let's move to the consent agenda. So David, if you'd be so kind as to take us through that.
No. I'm not going to talk.
Your voice.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to vote the consent agenda as one, and with the acceptance of gifts from Irene Markowski. Is it?
Janskow?
No, it's Mayuski. Is it? To the Council on Aging, I'm sorry. And a gift from the Italian American Ladies to the Council on Aging in the amount of $500. John Cerulli to the Community Policing Marketing Policy, $500. The Moms Club of Walpole for the Community Policing, $200.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
500.
I'll make
We
a
have some
motion
minutes to
to
approve.
approve the minutes of May 28th, 2019.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 3rd, 2019.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500. Jim, I think we're down to the town administrator's update now.
Just a few items to go over here. I wanted to let the board know that since your last meeting, I've received 2 more comprehensive permit applications. Those are 40B applications for 2 smaller scale excuse me, projects. An 8-unit project on Dupree Street. That's right near the Big Y. And that's for basically 4 multifamilies right next to each other. And then another one on Moose Hill Road, right in front of the large-scale project that was completed last year. That's, again, duplexes, side-by-side units. That's a 16-unit total there. The Moose Hill Road one, Mass Housing just contacted me today, said they'll be out. They'll let me know within the next 10 days when they want to do a site walk. Generally, what happens is they come out with the department heads, do a site walk, we talk kind of on site, and then they give us 30 or 45 days to provide them with some feedback, which in the past, it's come from your board. I've actually asked the department heads to put together their thoughts. We put it in a form letter and send that off after your board weighs in. So I expect we'll probably be doing the same thing for Dupree Street. but they haven't reached out yet. I just know that one's coming also, so more to come on that, and the board's more than welcome to attend the site visits when Mass Housing schedules them. I'll let you all know, just to it might give you a good sense of what they're looking at. There's a couple of things here, especially the width of the streets, sidewalks. Dupee Street is not really a town-accepted road, so there are some concerns that some of the department heads have already raised to me, so we'll be sure to identify that.
Thanks for that. Quick question. I wonder if it's time for us to have another meeting with the Affordable Housing Committee. We had their update. We got the building the building plan approved, the Affordable Housing Plan approved, and then we also had 2 articles at town meeting that were zoning articles that were approved. So we've made some steps down the path, executing on some of the next steps and actions out of that plan that the Affordable Housing Group brought to us. I think it'd be time to bring them back again and now start talking about what are the next things we should be looking at.
Okay.
Okay.
So maybe have them in during one of the summer meetings or something like that?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Thank you. Whenever Andrew, or it's not Andrew, it's Audrey Geist now, whenever
Yes.
they're ready.
I've actually reached out to Andrew and Audrey today to let them know about Moose Hill Road and Dupee Street, probably tomorrow, so.
Perfect. Okay.
Just
Thank
to
you.
ask them for their comments.
Okay.
Town clerk has a recount request. It's the first such request that I've received in my time here in Walpole. It's our first time dealing with something like that. Resident John Valancourt submitted a concern. He lost by 2 votes as an RTM, so he's asked and he's filed the proper paperwork to get that in there. I expect that a reserve fund transfer will be coming, probably from the town clerk, to just cover the overtime costs associated with that. It's going to take some time to put that together. Town council's going to work with us on it. Lauren Goldberg's well aware of it.
Well, we can charge that, right? Can we? I mean, it's like a public records.
No, we have to, the taxpayer has to pay for it, so
So we just bill them? We bill
have
it?
to. No, we have to cover the cost out of we'll do a reserve fund transfer. So
How much is the cost?
she doesn't know yet. We just got this at 4 o'clock today, so. Okay. Fiscal year end, department heads are being mindful as they approach the end of the year. There's no major issues with the exception of the DPW request that you made today and this town clerk issue that I'm dealing with. So we're just keeping a close eye on everything. I know the police department is pretty much all set. The fire chief mentioned tonight, he's looking okay, so, and Rick's monitoring all the DPW budgets. So building safety training, Chief Carmichael mentioned that. I think just everything that happened in Virginia a couple weeks ago kind of opened some of our eyes. It was in a municipal building, hit home a little bit, so we'll get that done before the summer's over. We're going to specifically address recreation, library, COA in this building. We'll break it up into a couple sessions, probably on a Friday, probably close for a couple hours, just so the staff will have it here or over at the Council on Aging or something. Then everybody goes back to their respective buildings. The police department does a drill, so just to make sure everybody's prepared here.
Do you think in the fall we should do one for all the boards?
I think the chief mentioned that in his update, and I'd be totally open for something like that. You know, one of the things that came up is some of these meeting spaces have emergency hit buttons, and we wanted to make sure that we placed those when we redid this building. We did my office and a few others, so yeah, I think it'd be good to, especially your board, planning board, zoning board, who has meetings in here, to school committee, to know about that. So we can do an abbreviated version or something. Okay.
That'd be good.
Okay, just a note too about the night before the 4th, the chief covered that, but obviously the building will be closed, and the firework delivery is the day of the 3rd, so we have to get out of this building. Library's closed anyways for their contract, but that's really it. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Jim?
No.
Okay, thank you, Jim. All right, so that concludes our open session agenda. We're now going to move into executive session. Now, help me with the rules here. So
Just read the, declare that.
Okay, I hereby declare that under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, subsection A3, the purpose of the session will be to discuss strategy with respect to possible litigation as the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. That a discussion of foregoing an open session could compromise the purpose for the executive session, and that the board shall return to open session for purpose of adjournment. This requires a roll call vote, so.
A second.
We have a motion, a second. David?
No.
Nancy?
Yes.
Yes. Ben?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
The motion is passed 4-1 to go into executive session, so we're now in executive session, and we will simply come back to adjourn the meeting for tonight. So thank you all for being here. Patrick, thank you for taking care of us with the cable.